I would like to welcome each of you to our Founders Day ceremony as we celebrate the 135th anniversary of the Wentworth Military Academy and College. I'm Cadet Del Perry, and I'm the battalion commander of the Wentworth Corps of Cadets. Wentworth, which was founded in 1880, is a school with a very rich history, many long-standing traditions, and strong track record of producing many top quality leaders in many different walks of life. During today's ceremony, we will recap much of the history of Wentworth, and we will try to relive some of the traditions, experiences, and success stories that have made Wentworth a unique and top quality school that it's been for many years. At this time, I would like to introduce Cadet Sanders, who will lead us in a special invocation, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance.
Please bow your heads. Lord, sir, we, sir, are, sir, students, sir, of Wentworth Military Academy, sir. We thank you for your many blessings on our school, sir. Without the academy, sir, some of us would not be as proud of ourselves as we are today, sir. Sir, with the guidance you give the academy and over 20,000 cadets who we turned into leaders in your name's sake, sir, we thank you, sir. Lord, sir, may the band always play, may the brass always shine, may the sabers always flash, and above all, sir, may the corps always sound off. Lord, sir, Wentworth Military Academy, all present for accounted for, sir. Written by Cadet Ron Snipes, class of 1961. Amen.
Mr. Jerry Brown, as he has a special proclamation to present.
Come forward. I appreciate it. I expected him to be on the stage, but I see that he's decided to sit with comfort in a nice warm chair. So when he comes up, I would like to present the academy, specifically a proclamation from the city of Lexington. We're so pleased that Wentworth Military Academy is located in Lexington, Missouri. And we will say that whereas the city of Lexington has continued to appreciate the numerous services provided by WMA cadets, faculty, and staff, and whereas the city of Lexington feels honored and thankful to provide support and a positive quality of life for the Wentworth family. Whereas the city of Lexington graduates and celebrates 135 years of Wentworth Military Academy's contribution to the nation, to our states, and to our local societies. I therefore, Jerry Brown, city of Lexington, do hereby acclaim April the 8th, 2015, Wentworth Military Academy Founders Day. And I would also ask that and encourage our residents to recognize the impact of service to our city and to thank those who serve and to find ways to give back to Wentworth Military Academy. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mayor Brown. We appreciate it very much on behalf of the Board of Trustees, faculty, staff, and Corps cadets. Thank you for coming and sharing that with us.
To begin our program for today, a group of Wentworth cadets will lead us on a journey back and through time as we uncover much of the rich history that is such a vital part of Wentworth and has been and is today. You will notice some of the cadets are dressed in different Wentworth uniforms from days gone by. A special thank you to Captain Jessica Davis and Captain Mike McClaffery for organizing the trip through history and working with the readers. The cadets who will read in the order of their readings are Luke Macias, Paul Hallbaker, Santiago Fernandez, Kazi Mahuna, Ishmael Jones, Katie Hawk, and Quincy Carpenter.
I will be talking about the history of Wentworth between 1800 and 1909. Wentworth was founded in 1880, initially as Hopkins Select School for Women. In 1881, the school became Wentworth when the school's benefactor, Stephen G. Wentworth, purchased the school and renamed it in memory of his recently deceased son, William. Sanford Sellers of Kentucky was hired on by Wentworth as co-principal with Benjamin Lewis Hobson. 6 men were chosen to be on the board of trustees. Boarding houses were created in 1881. 1881 to 1882, Ephraim King, a student who was a member of the local National Guard company, was all over the neighborhood for broomsticks. He used them to arm a group of lads who were interested in learning military techniques and taught them the manual arms. Sellers, who was watching this from his office, decided that military techniques and drills were the solution for exercise and discipline in Wentworth. They provided the students with uniforms and guns to practice the military drills. On April 11, 1882, the Board of Trustees approved of the planned military instruction and drill under the supervision of the principals. Wentworth name became Wentworth Military Academy on January 20, 1890.
I'm here today to talk about the history of Wentworth between 1909 and the 1920s. 33 years after officially becoming Wentworth Military Academy, Sanford Sellers and the Board of Trustees decided to help young men further their education by adding a program. By the mid-1920s, Sanford Sellers had handed over most of the day-to-day duties to his sons, Sanford Sellers Jr., who was the superintendent from 1923 to 1933, and James M. Sellers, commandant and assistant superintendent. Even after Mr. Sellers handed over responsibility to his young sons, he stayed very involved with Wentworth until his death in 1938 after the fall in the school's gymnasium.
I will be talking about Wentworth from 1930s to 1940s. In the great depression of the 1930s in the country, Wentworth and many institutions across the country struggled to survive. In 1933, Colonel James M. Sellers assumed the superintendency of the school. He was soon joined by Captain Helm and Colonel Lester D. White, treasurer and business manager. Together, Sellers' natural leadership and Wyckoff business acumen would lead the school to new heights. Colonel Sellers and Colonel Wyckoff guided the school through the lean years of the 1930s and into the prosperity of the 1940s, 50s, and 60s.
I will be talking about Wentworth from 1950 to the 1960s. Wentworth added a number of buildings to the campus, including the Sellers Wyckoff Scholastic Building.
Thank you, Kazi. I will continue and talk about the history of Wentworth from 1970 to 1989. In 1973, the third generation of the Sellers family assumed leadership of the academy when Colonel James McBriar Sellers Jr., a 1945 Wentworth graduate, was named as superintendent. In the early 1970s, the schools began to face a crisis. Anti-military backlash from the country's continued involvement in the Vietnam War, combined with double-digit inflation, caused enrollment decline. Many military schools across the country simply closed their doors. Wentworth was dealt an additional blow when, in 1975, fires destroyed 2 buildings and severely damaged houses, caused the loss of over 32,000 square feet of space. Despite these setbacks, Colonel J.M. Sellers Jr. was able to stabilize enrollment in 1978 and lead the academy through another period of growth. In 1980, Wentworth celebrated its centennial year with Vice President Walter Mondale addressing the board cadets back in school. In the early 1980s, enrollment continued to rise, peaking at over 400 cadets in 1982.
Thank you, Jamal. I'm going to talk about 1992 until 2000. In 1990s, we were struggling with enrollment as part of a new approach. Enrollment were needed for the first time in 1993, and today they make up about 25% of the cohort. In 2002, Major General John H. Little, Wentworth class of 1961, returned to the superintendent. Under her stewardship, Wilson Barracks was constructed using donation money. Wentworth Foundation put the school on stronger financial footing. The school goes to your homes across the street from main campus, the first by Wentworth, and now the alumni house and the infirmary.
Since the turn of the century, a couple of major facility improvements have been made on the campus. The dining hall in Sellers Hall was remodeled with a student-friendly decor, and the weight room was expanded and completely remodeled so that it's much more accessible to students many more college generations. Following a long-standing family tradition, Colonel William Sellers was appointed president of Wentworth in 2009, and he served in that capacity for 4 years. The college athletic program was established, and its resurgence significantly increased the college student enrollment while offering a wide range of competitive sports for both men and women. There were also a lot of significant changes in the student population during this time. Most notably, a large number of international students from the Cambridge group came from many different countries, and they were attracted to Wentworth, and the number of commuter students increased greatly as well. The college has taken great strides in effectively meeting the standards set forth by the Higher Learning Commission, as has the high school in meeting challenging advanced ed standards. In the spring of 2013, Colonel Michael Learman, the school superintendent, was named president, and he now serves in the dual role of both president and superintendent. During this school year, the name of the school was officially changed to Wentworth Military Academy and College. While the Red Dragon is the official mascot of the school, the short-tailed squirrel found named Stumpy, who can normally be found outside of Sellers Hall, is truly loved by many on campus.
Thank you, cadets, Captain Davis, and Captain McClafferty. At this time, I would like to introduce Lieutenant Colonel All, who will introduce some local Wentworth alumni who have joined us today's ceremony. This will be followed by a panel discussion, including some of Wentworth's most distinguished alumni.
One thing that we're very happy about in Wentworth is we have a very active group of alumni. We have about 5 of those alumni that are here today to help us celebrate. I'd like to introduce them, and I ask that they please stand when I call your name. The first one is Bruce Minter. Bruce, if you stand. Bruce graduated from Wentworth in 1972. He's a retired attorney and very active in our community. So Bruce, it's good to have you here. Stan Wojciechowski. Did I pronounce that right or not, Stan? Been close? Okay. Stan graduated from Wentworth in 1979. He was a receiving manager for several different companies. We see him quite a bit on campus also. So Stan, it's good to have you with us. We think Slick graduated in 1956. He was not 100% sure a few minutes ago. But he's an outstanding community member. Slick was our county assessor here in Lafayette County for quite a few years. Very, very well respected by so many people. And Slick, always good to see you on campus. Mr. Terry Thompson. Terry's seated in the back. Terry attended Wentworth from 1971 to 73. Terry is also very active in the Lexington community. He's been a banker for all those years and president of a bank, and I know he served on the Lexington School Board as well as many other different activities. So, Terry, good to have you with us. Kenny graduated in 1961. You probably see Kenny on campus quite a bit. I know he's very active in the Lexington Live organization. And Kenny was the owner of Walker, Noddler, Fuller Funeral Home for many years, and also, I say, very active in the community. Let's give our alumni. We could not do what we do at Wentworth without the support. I know you all are very busy, and thanks for taking time to be with us. Going to kind of lighten things up a little bit now. We've got what I call some distinguished celebrities from Wentworth. These are some folks that have been involved with Wentworth for quite a few years. And we're going to have a little panel discussion. We've got some ideas we want to toss around and want to get their feedback. And there's a lot of history with this group right here. First of all, this is Norma Marion, a rose among thorns. Mrs. Marion came to Wentworth in 1957. At that time, she taught swimming and dancing, I believe, in the evening. Had her 4 sons. Her husband, Keith, was a math teacher, college math teacher, taught upper-level math. Very quiet-spoken gentleman, but I don't know anybody that was any more respected than Keith Marion as a teacher. And Norma came in 1979. She became the alumni director. And before that, she said she was whatever you want me to do for Beth Hepler. Beth Hepler would tell her what to do with a lot of different social events on campus, and Norma would do whatever Mrs. Hepler asked her to do. In 1979, she became the Wentworth alumni director, served in that capacity until 2005, when she became the alumni director emeritus. When cadets come back to campus, this is the first person they look at, Norma Marion. Colonel Michael Lehrman. I don't think he needs any introduction. Colonel Lehrman has been associated with Wentworth now for 35 years. Colonel Lehrman came here back around 1967. He was a cadet, high school cadet for 4 years, graduated in 1971. During that time, he played football. He was also on the track team. And then he came back to college and graduated in 1973. Colonel Lehrman was also the assistant battalion commander at that time. He came back to Wentworth in 1980. He's probably held most positions on campus. He came back as the assistant commandant. He then became an admissions counselor. He was director of admissions. He became the director of operations, vice president. In 2005, he became the school's superintendent. And then 2 years ago, he became the president. So he now serves as both the president and the superintendent. He's doing a very good job. Colonel Mike Brown. I've seen this gentleman on campus quite a bit, Major Sam Ratcliffe. Major Ratcliffe came to Wentworth, I'm going to say around 1959, as a high school student, close, stayed 4 years here, also stayed here and graduated from college in 1965. Sam's a quarterback on the college football team here at Wentworth. Also, he was the brigade commander. Now, back in those days, we had 2 different battalions. the 2 battalions made up the brigade. He was the head of both battalions. So he was an outstanding leader. Upon graduating from Wentworth, Major Ratcliffe was in the Army for 10 years, served in Vietnam, a total of 26 months. Came back to Wentworth, came back, I believe, in 1995, taught here for around 12 years. He taught econ, he taught business classes, also coached college track, high school track, college cross country, high school cross country. His wife, Caroline. We lost Caroline here not too long ago, right before Christmas. I don't know if any of you all had Mrs. Ratcliffe as a teacher. She was a language teacher, foreign language teacher. Outstanding lady. A lady that many cadets identified with. Many cadets could go to if they needed something. And she was a big part of Wentworth, so we certainly appreciate her. And Sam, thank you for being with us today. Colonel Rick Cottrell. Colonel Cottrell has been here, he came, I believe, 1986, and Colonel Cottrell came here as a business teacher. He was also a high school swimming coach, also with tennis, also coached tennis. Then he served as a business teacher for about 8 years. He became the high school principal. He served in that capacity for 12 years. He then became the commandant. He served in that capacity for, I think, around 5 years, and then he became the director of operations. That's what he's doing. And then now he's the admissions director. So Colonel Cottrell, along with Colonel Learman, he's done almost everything on campus. One of those guys you can go to when you need something. So, and finally, Coach Tom Hughes. Coach Tom Hughes first came to Wentworth in 1985. He was the junior college basketball coach until 1994. Had some very successful teams, turned the program around. Had some good years here. He left Wentworth, and then he went to Kansas Wesleyan College, and for 4 years there, he was the head boys basketball coach, head girls basketball coach, also the volleyball coach. And then after that, he was a coach of a private semi-pro team, a private professional basketball team for 6 years. After that, he worked in the Atchison County schools down in Georgia for 6 years, and then he was the assistant athletic director at Valdosta State for 4 years after that. Coach Hughes came back to Wentworth. He came back here in 2011. He's the guy that really got the athletic program rolling at the junior college level. And he's had some very good basketball teams. His team, not this past year, but the year before, was 19-7. Had an All-American player, Andre Scott, on that team. And Coach Hughes, at his first stint here, he taught the high school social studies, but he's really come back and really done a great job for us also. So these are our distinguished celebrities. So we're going to ask you some... I'm going to pass the microphone around, and I'm going to let them say what they want to, when they want to, or not say if they don't feel like it. But the first thing I'd ask you, what influenced you to come to Wentworth in the first place?
We came to Wentworth because where my husband had been teaching college math for 7 years, his alma mater called him up and said, I have had 3 calls from different colleges in the United States. And they are looking for a certain type of a math teacher. And when we looked around, you're it. So you're going to be receiving calls. So one was Wichita State University, one was Texas University, and the third one was Wentworth Military Academy. Well, we weren't looking for another job, but why not listen to them? So we drove to Wichita, and we listened to what they had offered my husband. Then we went to Texas University, and I found out what they would offer him, and then we came to Wentworth Military Academy. When we came to Wentworth, we took the job. It was $3,000, not $3,000 a week, not $3,000 a month. It was $3,000 a year. And what Wichita University offered him was $3,400 and no benefits. What Texas University offered him was $3,800, and Keith would have medical insurance. When we came to Wentworth, they offered $3,000, a 2-bedroom house for our family to live in, and 3 meals a day in the mess hall, and our health insurance for the whole family. So you can see Wentworth was at the top of the list when it came to offering jobs to other people. At the time when he came, the only way you could work at Wentworth, if they weren't satisfied with you or the fact that somebody had died in that particular year, they had lost 2 of their teachers here at Wentworth, and so we ended up at Wentworth. Never been sorry since.
When I first came, I had graduated from college after I left here. My father worked in the steel mill in Kansas City, and I could make a lot more money up there than I could doing what I went to college for with my business degree. It wasn't very long after that the steel industry kind of took a downturn, and so I was looking for a job. And I knew the commandant, and the commandant came to me and he says, "Mike, would you come to work for me this school year?" And I said, "I will, but I'm looking for a job, so I probably won't be here all year." And he said, "If you'll just come and help me, whenever you find a job, I'll let you go." Obviously,
Good morning. Good morning. I came to Wentworth when I was 10 years old, to summer camp. I danced around the little Indian down in the fire ring. I watched him build this building. When my father lost his health, we had to move. He was in a hospital, my mother was teaching school, and I was running loose. My mother wanted me to come to Wentworth so I could be with the men and women of Wentworth, and I could have a family. And it was the most wonderful opportunity in my life. After I graduated high school, I went off to thinking I could make my way playing college football, but there was something called the draft. And I didn't want to be a private. No offense. The private made $95 a month, and the second lieutenant made $305. I like 305 better than 95. I came back to Wentworth to get my commission. And I was able to play sports. Got my commission, went on to play college football. Went on active duty. If I hadn't had that commission, I hadn't been on active duty, I would have met Mrs. Ratcliffe. We would have had 3 sons. When I retired from the IBM Corporation, Mrs. Marion called me and said, "What are you doing?" I said, "Not a hell of a lot." She, with Carl Brown, asked me to come back. I taught computer science, business, economics, under one of the most finest principals I ever worked with in my life, Norman Sherrill. Truly a great man. I wanted to give back to Wentworth what he had given to me. We got the college track team started again. College cross country went to a national event. Indoor track went to nationals in Kansas State on 3 occasions. High school teams, every year we had somebody go to state. We had 7 athletes qualify as all-state athletes in track. So Wentworth gave me everything I had. And I'm going to take a minute. Before I tell, you want me to tell the Bruno story? The Bruno story that we get this. Okay. The one thing I want to tell you, I'm hogging the show, I didn't realize at the time that Wentworth gave me and thousands of others the opportunity to establish and develop and maintain a passion for order and discipline. And if you don't have order and discipline in your life, then the rest of us are going to be supporting the rest of your life. It's a wonderful opportunity. Take advantage. Thank you.
all right. Let me ask you, we're going to have a series of questions. Talk about one tradition that you remember in your times at Wentworth, maybe one long-standing tradition. Anybody like to talk about one?
There are a lot of traditions. I think most of the ones that struck me was when I was a rat. You still have rats? We were the lowest thing on the earth. We were lower than Stick's Belly, higher than Kemper Colonel. We had to go in the back door. But what it taught us was humility. And if anything, whether it be in the military or in business, you gotta learn how to follow before you can lead. And I think the positions I learned were here at, we had, the mess hall was different in those days. We had waiters, you know, we had the liquids on the table, and the rats had to pour the water for the old boys. We had to go in the back door, we had to sweep the halls in the morning. And we had to repeat the Rat's Creed, where ISER, AMSER, ACER, RATSER, ISER, AMSER, ROSER, MAGSER, BELSER, BUSER, ISER, AMSER, higher sir, then a skipper, sir, colonel. I did that as a secret meeting. I think that was a tradition of, you know, there's just so many things. I could go on about the traditions we had in athletics and other activities with people who used to live in Boonville before they quit. And I want to tell a story about that later. Now or whatever. Now I got you, you're not leaving. I noticed on your athletic shirts, there's a little red dragon. That's the mascot, correct? This mythical thing. If you don't understand where the red dragon came from, that was on the Wentworth family crest in England. Well, the red dragon hasn't always been the mascot of Wentworth, regardless of what you read in the history of Wentworth. Once upon a time, a long time ago, and I believe this is about 1928, 29, there was a stray dog, the bulldog named Bruno, that just wandered the campus. He would go to the mess hall. No one said anything. That's when the mess hall was in the old building, next to the administration building. It's burned. He would go on the stage at chapel. The chapel was held in what is now Grondike Hall, which used to be a gymnasium and had a stage at one end. Bruno was just everywhere. And he was kind of like the adopted mascot. If you look deep enough, it's very interesting pictures. Cardi will have some of Bruno's bulldog. Everybody accepted it. Well, when it came Thanksgiving Day, when the Corps used to get on the train, you ever know what trains are? Ever seen one? You used to get on the train and go to Boonville to the annual Thanksgiving football game. And Bruno went along. And they got down there, and I don't know if they have vets in the audience, but you know the dogs are colorblind. And if Bruno couldn't tell the difference between one color uniform, the good color, and another color. So when it came time after Wentworth won the football game, paraded through town, got back on the train and came back to Lexington, Bruno stayed. And no one thought much of it. The superintendent of that so-called place called Colonel Sellers Sr. the next day and said, "Now we got your mascot, got your dog." He said, "It's not our dog, you keep the damn thing." Okay, no one thought anything of it. About 2 days later, when the people down there learned how to read and write, they wrote a student newspaper. And in their paper was, I'll say it, Pepper stole Wentworth's mascot. Ooh, now everyone got excited. Well, for about a year, every time a Wentworth team would go down there, and we competed with those people almost on a weekly basis or one thing or another. They couldn't find Bruno. Finally, the debate team went down one time, and they sent somebody with the primary mission to find that dog. And he found Bruno, and he skirted him off to a hotel downtown Boonville and held him until the night train came back to Lexington. And that was the mascot for a long time, and Bruno came back, and everyone cheered, and he roamed the campus. Then, like so many of us, he disappeared. But he was a mascot for some years. Colonel Sellers Sr. used to tell that story. He could tell it much better than I could. But the fact is that the Red Dragon hasn't always been the mascot of Wentworth. Thank you.
All right, I'd ask our panel right now to name one alumnus of Wentworth that you especially remember.
The one alumnus that, actually not really an alumnus, but an individual that I met whenever I first got here on campus. My very first year, we were supposed to serve as table heads. And so the first meal after the school year began, I walked in the dining room, had no clue what to do, where to go, and there was one individual who came up to me and pointed me in the right direction and told me that I would be sitting by him. That was Major Merrick. So that's the one individual that I remember the most that had the biggest impact on me in the whole time that I've been here.
As I mentioned, the Trader Love, DT Love. DT is the all-time leading scorer at Wentworth, but more important than that, when DT was on campus, he was company commander of Foxtrot, little kids. At the time we had junior high, and DT had those kids lined up and doing the right things that they were supposed to be doing at all time. DT, he played multiple sports for us. He was a really astute student, but he was also a company commander and was, in his 2 years here, set the record for all-time leading scoring at Wentworth. And for one of the athletes that have been here, DT was probably one of the top athletes ever played.
I've got two that I can think of. One is sitting at the back of the room. Mr. Thompson and I have been friends since we were about this old. I was not a very good student in high school, so my folks sent me here initially in my freshman year. He stayed at the local high school, and he came here in college. And when he first came, of course, I had been here for 4 years and had a little bit of rank, and I'd learned the system, and I had to teach him how to march, and he didn't know his left from his right. So I put a rock in his left hand so that anytime somebody said left face, he knew which way to turn. The other one that I think of that was kind of a legend when I came here as a cadet back in the 60s was John Grondike. John Grondike is the person we named Grondike Hall after. I'm sure you've seen his case in the building. John was a legend when I came here. John had graduated before I got here, but everybody knew about John Grondike. I got to know John when I came back to work here at the school. He was on the board, and for, 18 or 20 years was chairman of the board during the time I've been here. And I got to know him personally as a friend. But he's been one of those people that not only had the tradition of being a leader as a cadet, but also as a member of the board and supporter of the school.
I think a name a lot of us won't forget is Jacob Sherman. Jacob Sherman was from Mexico, just a very young cadet, and a nursemaid took care of him all the time. And when he got here, his company commander, which was Bob Sellers goes to his mother and says, "What am I going to do with this cadet? He doesn't even know how to tie his own shoes." She said, "Well, teach him one thing at a time. Teach him how to tie his shoes. Once he's got that down pat, teach him how to button his clothes. And for gosh sakes, have the cadets show him how to take a bath." And of course, Jacob had language of his own. One day he went into Colonel Cottrell's office and he said, "I want the video. I want the video." And kept saying, "What's a video?" Couldn't find out it was a video. Now Jacob will call up from here and he goes, "Now Mrs. Mary, I'm coming back and I'm going to be your escort. You hear me? I escorted you when I was here. I will escort you then. And then I want to go to the football team and I want to run out with a bucket of water." Well, Jacob Sherman keeps in contact with all of us here. I tell you, he's on Facebook. He may be in Mexico, but he can tell you anything and everything that is happening and what's going to happen.
Now remember, maybe 25, 30, 40 years down the road, you might be one of the alumni they're talking about. So, good, bad, whatever. Miss Mary, you're on a roll. Tell that story about the time you were pulling your sons up the hill during an ice storm in the sled.
Sam will vouch for this one. I had 3 little boys on a sled, and Lexington had been hit with an ice storm. You couldn't hardly walk, well, no school. They were ice skating on the lawn down Main Street. And the thing is, I put them on this sled, the cords of attention out in front of the mess hall. I come pulling the sled, and for whatever reason, my feet went one way, and the sled went the other. Now, they were told the cadets not to march in because they couldn't keep their footing. Well, this sled went down between the Corps cadets, and they were all trying to save those 3 little boys on the sled. And as Colonel Wyckoff would say, they wiped out the Corps.
Any of you remember another, we've had several humorous stories. Anybody else remember something on the light side, Wentworth, you'd like to share?
I don't know if it's on the light side, but after I decided to sign my contract and then I was asked to be the swim coach, there was a water safety instruction and lifeguarding class that I decided that I would sign up for. And the instructor was Mrs. Marion. And so in our class, one of the things that she would always ask somebody to go into the water, and then she would turn around and she would ask for one of the other members of the class to go in and retrieve that person and rescue them. And so in our class, there was this man that was about 6'8" and weighed almost 400 pounds. And so she asked him to get into the water. She turns around to the rest of the class and she says, "Go get him." She's looking at me. Okay, I'm about 140 pounds soaking wet. So I'm looking behind me to see who's behind me. And there isn't anybody. So I jump in, I put him in a cross-chest carry, and I began to go from the deep end to the shallow end, and I did not surface, literally, until I got all the way down to where I could touch when it got shallow enough.
Do any of you have any teachers? We talked about alumni. Any teacher, any Wentworth employee that sticks out in your memory that you like to mention?
I would say the 2 of them right here, of Mike and of Rick. Anybody in this auditorium, and whoever been in this auditorium, if they have a problem, and needless to say, they seem to be met with them, they go to them and they can settle anything. I have the greatest of respect for those 2 men. You miss old employees around here. You miss the Sharons that were in the bookkeeping office. You miss the Sineads who know everything about a typewriter or a computer. But the thing is, as I said, those 2 men should have the respect of all of us.
I was here the first time Dick Wynn was the athletic director. And Dick kind of let us do our own thing within limits, but always remember Dick going to the dining hall. And, you know, there was an ice cream machine back in the day. And Dick's first meal, as you would go through the line now, you would get your meal, and the last thing you get, probably your dessert or your drink. The first thing that Dick would do would get a big bowl full of ice cream. That would start his meal. And that was one thing I always remembered. He was a super guy, played for a national championship team in Oklahoma, and that's one of your high schools, isn't it? And anyway, that was one of the guys that were here that helped establish one of the best coaching staffs that were ever on this campus. And so that would be my guy, Dick Wynn.
Side note for Dick Wynn, Dick was a good friend, I think, to everybody. Dick and I both kind of were overweight in our lives, and fought that through time. And he used to say if we were 8 foot tall, we would be overweight. The 2 or 3 people that come out of my mind, and as I've shared with you all many times, you're probably not going to remember me when you graduate and leave, but you're going to remember those teachers and those faculty members and those coaches that work with you through time. When I came here in the early, late 60s and early 70s, football was the sport that I loved. We had a coach named Paul B. Ferris and Cecil Patterson. we called Coach Patterson Cecil P. We went to Reserve Military Academy I think it was late in November. Football season seemed to be later in those days. And we had punted the ball, there was snow on the ground, and their receiver had dropped it, and I was down there with a couple of other players. One of the guys said to me, pick the ball up. My nickname in football was Lucky at the time. He said, pick it up, Lucky, and you can score a touchdown. Because I was always a lineman. I reached down and picked up 2 hands full of snow and didn't score a touchdown. And I think the other person, or maybe 2 other people that really stuck out for me, Major Marion was a great math teacher, and I was a terrible math student. I think he finally passed me just so I wouldn't be in his class. But he was one of those people that had tremendous amount of patience to help be able to accomplish what you needed to understand that needed to happen. And then the last one was a Navy gentleman that I knew from way back in life before I came here, and his name was Commander Ed Ellis, and he taught citizenship in 9th grade when I was here. He knew my family, and I had a family member that was an uncle to me, and he had played for the New York Yankees in the farm club. And they had nicknamed him, because I think he chewed tobacco at that time. They called him Uncle Juicy. And that's all I knew him as. I can't really tell you what his real name was. And so the thing that sticks out of my mind about Commander Ellis was he was pretty tough. Back then, he would kind of knock you on the head with his knuckle and things like that. But I did a paper that I think my mom kept for years. I think after she died, threw it away. I got an A on the paper for content, and I got a D- on the paper for spelling. And the red note beside the D- was that I needed to get Uncle Juicy to buy me a pen that could spell. I share that with you because there are going to be those times for each of you that those folks that sat to your right over there that had an impact on you. Not necessarily teaching you English, math, history, and science, but also teaching you those life skills. Things that, for me, that would have been 40-some years ago. To remember those people and the things that they did for us.
The one thing that I'll always remember, and I think everybody sitting up here can say the same thing, Colonel James McBrayer Sellers Sr. He's quite a gentleman. He came here, he was born here, up in the administration building in June of 1895, and he passed away at the age of 90. If you will go into the Hall of Honor and look at the gentleman's face and his write-up that's next to the ones that received the Medal of Honor, you will see what that Marine did so much in World War I. He was a gentleman that when he'd come back here, he would get up they call it Veterans Day now, he said he'll always be Armistice Day to him. He would get up and he would talk to the Cadet Corps about what happened the day World War I ended. And you could have heard a pin drop anywhere he talked about his story. He told about the fact the day that they called World War I off, he said we lit campfires. We couldn't light campfires before because they would tell the enemy where we were. He said we took our helmets, we put water in, and put it over these fires to get the water hot and washed our clothes. Rick will he'd talk about the nits that would come out and it would smash them between the fingers. And here they'd been living with those all this time because they couldn't wash their clothes. He was a gentleman that they would send the Marine Corps, as the years went by, down here to Lexington to talk about his time in World War I. And he'd say, Norma, I tell the same story every time. But he was quite a gentleman.
Okay, we need to probably wrap this up, and I'd ask each of you one more question, very quickly, Sam. Tell us, what is the one thing you like most about Wentworth?
I don't know that there's just one thing, but one of the reasons why I've been here for as long as I have, and the reason I just kind of let Wentworth grow on is because of the Corps Cadets. Because it has been a pleasure to work with Corps Cadets throughout the years, and especially to watch the Corps change from year to year. And each Corps has had a different personality, and each Corps has had different makeups from different places. And one of the biggest things that I think is the most valuable piece of Wentworth Military Academy and being able to attend here is the diversity of the Corps Cadets.
I look back at the opportunity, and I'm going to come back to this word here in a second. When I came to Wentworth in 1985, 1986, it was probably the worst college basketball program I had ever been around. We did not have a starter taller than 6'3". We were just bad. And so we played opening game, and I can't remember who we played, and Joe was one of our Colonel Hall was one of our officials, but we got beat by 50 points, and I wasn't used to that. And Colonel Sellers came over, and at the time was the President Wentworth came over and told me how good the team looked, and I'm thinking, how in the world can a team look when we just got crushed? I'm thinking, oh my God, how bad is this going to be? Well, I made that team a promise when that year was over. We would never be that bad again. The next year we won 14 games. The following year we won 18 games. That team that played that year set the standard for the teams that followed. And off of that team we had the Trader Love, who was one of the all-region players for us. But as I mentioned a little while ago, he was company commander with Foxtrot. He was all-time leading scorer. He's in the Athletic Hall of Fame. Todd McGowan is in the Athletic Hall of Fame. Randy Florence, those of you know Coach Flo. Coach Flo is in the Athletic Hall of Fame. We had several guys off of that team went into service. Jim Sizemore retired as a lieutenant colonel. Ted Kibista retired as a major. So that was the start of things to come. And because of the leadership that they showed that throughout the years, with that group of guys, we went on and placed, over the next few years, we placed guys in All-American status. We placed a number of guys who got to play in the NCAA tournament that we just finished up here earlier this week. But more importantly, and most importantly, it's the opportunity that you have here at Wentworth. It's the opportunity to get an education and take advantage of that education. It's an opportunity to play at a high level of college sports. And it's an opportunity to learn lessons through the Corps of Cadets to make you, not maybe now, but 15, 20 years from now, when I get a phone call from a former player and they tell me, Coach, the best thing I ever did was go to Wentworth. They taught me much more than basketball. And that is what I want to send out to you today, the opportunity to become a better person by being here at Wentworth.
It's very difficult to say what is the one thing. I think one thing that always impressed me, and you to this day, is the environment. The environment's made up of people. When you're talking about alumni, in fact, a minute ago, I went to Creek Mine, and thought of so many people. I thought of Colonel Eric, who taught biology and zoology and botany. When I was in the North Central Highlands, sit on ambush. I looked at the bugs and the reptiles, and I think, boy, I'm getting paid to do this. If I ever would love me. I tried to send them some bugs and things I found that customers would run through. But then I also think of Colonel Sellers, as a very tough guy. Just a wonderful man. And I used to think, if I went through life, would Colonel Sellers approve of what I do? What would he think? And his most famous words to me were, Reserve. When I took Latin 1 and made some freshman. Mr. Representative, I will award you a key if you don't take Latin 2. But it's the people. You can go on different places in life and you talk about, oh, they got this facility, that facility. The hell is the facility? It's the people inside it. You know, the people that educated me and others, the people who educate you today. I still talk to classmates and teammates almost on a weekly basis. And it's been over 50 years for some of us. But it's the environment. Thank you. Thank you, Jay.
I certainly echo what Major Merriman had to say. You know, not only Wentworth has changed through the years, but so has the whole community. In 1957, when Mike, Lehrman, and Thompson, and my oldest son, Stan, went to kindergarten, it's the first year that the blacks and the whites went to school together. Now you go on down the road, and in 1968, Wentworth had his first black cadet. He was a college young man, outstanding young man. In 93, 94, we have female cadets. And I look at here, and I see the many cadets out there from foreign countries. And yet Wentworth works together with everybody. I commend you. I commend you what you're doing. I commend the faculty for everything they do for these cadets. And we of the alumni appreciate the fact that you have invited us back.
You know, I refereed a lot of basketball games here in Wentworth in my early days. I called one technical foul on a Wentworth coach. Guess who it was? Anybody got a guess? But this one, he did a great job. Listen, I think you can see, and I hope you've heard today, you've heard a lot of names mentioned. You've heard a lot of funny experiences. You've heard a lot of very meaningful things said. These are people that have lived it for many years. And this is a special place. Sometimes in the day-to-day, we forget that. But there are a lot of memories can be made. You'll look back on these days when you went to Wentworth, and you can tell how fondly this group looks back on those days. So make the most of the time you had. We deal every day with Coach Hughes and Colonel Lehrman and Colonel Cottrell. We appreciate all they've done. Thanks to Major Rack and Mrs. Mary. They're two very special alumni from Wentworth. Thank them for taking their time. Let's give our celebrity panel one more night.
I would just like to share with you on this momentous time as we look at the 135th year that we've had the opportunity to celebrate, knowing that we've been able to do things through the years and many of the stories that you've heard about today. But I think about Stephen G. Wentworth and Colonel Sellers Sr. and those folks that made the way for us to be here today, the opportunities that we had. And I look at many of the cadets that I went to school with, some that I followed in school, many that I have worked with through time that have become alums, and probably many of them that may not, especially in high school, have always wanted to come initially. But as I listen to their stories and see them grow and have their own families and the things that they have done within their lives, it makes me proud to know that I've had a small part to play in that process. So on behalf of the Board of Trustees, the faculty and staff here at the Academy, all those that have gone before us, that have worked here and made the way to be here today, I say thank you to them. And I say to you as the Board of Cadets on the 135th year of the Corps, that we appreciate very much the opportunity to work with you. We've had a good school year. We're getting close to the end, so I would challenge you to finish strong. It will not be long before we'll be having the graduation ceremonies and the year will be out. But we wanted to take just a moment today to recognize the 135 years that this institution has been part of being here and educating young men and women and having the opportunity to do the things that we do. So I hope that each of you have had an opportunity in the last few minutes to be able to recognize some of that history, some of the things that some of us went through, and some of the things that many have laid the groundwork for us. And again, I congratulate you on a good school year.
On behalf of the cadets, thank you for sharing your experiences with us. We may not admit it now, but a few years down the road, 5, 10, 20 plus, I'm sure that we will either admit to ourselves or admit to a friend that the impact that we will have on us is better. I will now ask the battalion staff to come up to the stage, and Major Ratcliffe will lead everyone in the Whitworth traditional cheer and handicap cheer, followed by the Whitworth song. Carpenter, off.
I don't, Colonel Hall asked me to say, tell you about the order of this silly cheer thing. I don't know what the order is, but I got an idea. I want to pass it on to you. There's a distinguished college of higher education in Ottawa County, north of here. It's been 5 times national champion in football versus 2. Northwest Missouri State University was originally Northwest Normal. 2 of our, actually when I was here, we've gone there, Colonel Ungles, in the Athletic Hall of Fame in Northwest Missouri, and Colonel Willoughby. Colonel Willoughby always gave us that speech the night before the homecoming game, charge of the victory. I can sure recall crying. But Northwest Missouri is now known as the Bearcats. They originally go to the Ham-Fats, and their colors were red and white. But today they're the Bar Cats, and their colors are green and white. So that's the only way I can think these men might have brought this silly ass cheer. But it echoes my mind. And you might have had it anyway. It's a shame we don't have that affect you in football game anymore. You know, ham, fat, ding, fat.